Hey guys, it's 7Ninja7, and today we'll be talking about Kate Bishop, and her melee intrinsic build. What I decided to do here is I was like, I don't really like the bow, and I don't really find melee by itself to be that great, as it's kind of slow. Coming off of Black Widow, you know, I kind of was like, shoot man, how do I make this faster, because it feels like our attacks are too slow to handle any enemy. But I was also kind of like, well, it's not so slow that I wouldn't be able to use it mid-combat. And then I remembered, oh wait, I can teleport attack, I can teleport dash away, I can teleport parry. You know, there was all these things, and I was like, alright, well, instead of fully focusing on the idea of just, oh, let me do another melee build like I did you know, Black Widow, where that's really all what I really just focused on was just her melee off of status, so maybe a status melee build, I guess. I was like, alright, let me make a build focused on the intrinsic, because you could argue I did that with Hulk, right? But at the same time, it's like, you know, that's just something that complements Hulk. The intrinsic for Kate Bishop is a lot different from the intrinsic from Hulk. So here we are. So anyway, let's get on to the intrinsic melee build. One of the main things I ran into earlier when I was playing Kate Bishop was that I had no real way to apply status well. And what I found was Hawkeye's Edge. This was the main way for me to apply my status effect as often as I needed to. Coming off of Black Widow, I realized that the main thing I would always do is melt my target down with a status first. Well, so more or less I'm trying to prime them, and then I want it to detonate with her electricity and to maybe go into my finisher. The thing was, I had no real way to do that. Sure, I could attack with my finisher, but my finisher was too slow, and by the end of my finisher I probably would have got smacked by an Adaptoid or whatever. And so it was like, alright, well, how do I apply it effectively? Well, the best way to do that would be Hawkeye's Edge. Main reason using a purple is just because I wanted to complement my lethal Norn, and I was like, extra seconds on my damage buff is always good. So I was like, well, I could use something that gives me a chance on weak point to get a damage buff, and so that's why I chose this one. Scattershot's just good for melee range, and the other two just don't feel really good at all to me, but it also, Scattershot just feels great in melee range. Now, let's talk about the bodysuit. The bodysuit is like your second part of your bread and butter. This works in tandem with your Hawkeye's Edge. Now, the main reason it does is it allows you to get your intrinsic bar back, and it kind of fills it instantly once you use it. Now, if you use it too much, it will bug out and act like, you know, you already popped it. And so it's kind of like you gotta use it and then just like slow your teleports as you go through the air. You'll kind of have it on an infinite amount. It's just that you have to let the 4 seconds run out in order to pop it again. And so it's like, use your dash in between as you're doing your regular melee attacks. Not regular melee attacks, but your regular intrinsic attacks. And then pop in some regular melees along the way. But you're not really going to be using your heavy finisher that often anyway, right? Because you're going to be using your intrinsic energy. Finally, we're going to talk about Hawkeye's Charm. The main reason I use this is just so I can fill my overcharge bar. That's that little bars on the side of your main intrinsic bar. The main reason I use it is kind of like, well, I need a backup way to get my energy in case I've overspammed or overfilled my dash attack or dash ability. And sometimes it just helps to have a decoy or have some DPS coming out of your decoy, right, out in the area. With this build, I actively don't use my warp arrow unless I'm trying to teleport somewhere. So I'm trying to get around. Maybe sometimes I want to use it as a get off me tool, but really I'm just using it to get around. It's like a faster way to teleport. Faster to teleport with the warp arrow than it is to teleport with the dash. But the dash is good for small locations. I use my decoy really as a utility. I don't actively use it as a main ability. And so it's like I'll drop a decoy, let him do his DPS thing, and I'll just be in another area while it's building up my overcharge bar. So it's really just pop it when I'm low so that I can have more out there as much as possible. Now on to the skills. So the light attack, heavy attack, range, intrinsic, you know, you're gonna get this anyway. Once you get the level 50, right, you're gonna get all the skill points in general anyway. So primary is already gonna be fixed up. But I believe, where is it at? Where is it at? Quantum saber, quantum lift, quantum shift. This will work with your decoys, so it helps your decoy. You don't really need to read all that. Just know that, you know, the build is already set in the gear, so you already know what you got to do for the simplified version. But if you want more detail, here you go. Where is it? Is it anywhere in here? Maybe it may not be necessary. There you go. There you go. This is what causes you to have your ability, your ultimate ability, without actually popping your ultimate. Anyway, let's go on to the specialty tree. Alright, so you got your support ability. Like I told you before, I don't actually use my support or assault ability like I would use it on any other character. With my support ability, it's more like, alright, look, if I'm going to put it out there, it's just going to be out there. I'm not going to cancel it early. I'm not really worried about health too much. And I'm like, alright, look, this ain't really necessary. You know, the decoy is out there. Like, I'm not expecting it to live forever. I just don't want it on me I don't want the enemies on me at the time. And so I'm like, alright, well, let me get the, you know, let me get the cover fire so it can fire more. And I chose this because I was like, if I'm going to have this, I'm going to want this. Because it's like, you got to think, if I'm going to be using a assault-based decoy, I'm not going to be using this to cancel it earlier. I don't need to do that. That would mean I'd focus around the idea of using that. Using the support ability off. And I'm not going to use this because it's like, yeah, extra health will work, but most likely by then I'm going to have a takedown ready anyway. And if anything, I can just teleport away and get some heals anyway. So it's more like, are you going to, you know, are you going to just sit with this, sit on this, or are you going to actually have a little more skill, you know, play a little better, and just focus on more on where are things I get heal at? Can I get a takedown? You know, think about that kind of stuff. So like I said, don't really use the support ability often, but when I do, it's really just for overcharge intrinsic energy anyway. Assault heroic, and you know, warp arrow. Like I told you before, I don't really use this for anything like main battle. It's really to get around. I thought about singularity for my melee, but then I thought, well, if I'm going to use singularity, I'm probably running a range build. And so I'm like, well, singularity doesn't work too well. And I'm not really trying to help friends out. A lot of times I'll actually just run by myself anyway, as a lot of my friends don't play this game. But when I am playing this game with people, they'll get around on their own anyway. I mean, Captain America can now, well, he can get around pretty easily anyway. It's not that hard. Yeah, it would be faster with a warper hole, but I'm not going to do that for him. But what I will use is Jumper, and what I will use is Voidwalker. Main reason, I have 3, well, I think it's just 2, right? No, it's 3. I'm thinking of an armor piece that would give you an extra one. But I have, like, 3 in total warp arrows that I can just fire to, you know, get around the map whenever I need to. Or maybe I just need to cause a mini explosion on the ground so I can get some enemies off me, right? That's all I ever really use it for, but I don't use it often enough to be like, well, this is my main thing I want to focus in. Because otherwise, I'd use singularity. The Cloak of Oblivion. Shadowjack, I kind of do get it, but I'm, like, with my, regular, like, dash attack, blink dashes in general, but it's like, it's not that serious. Like, I'm not that worried about it. And then you got Gravity Crush, inflicting more damage. Look, like I said, if I'm not using it as my main ability, I'm not going to use it. And if I'm using this, I'll probably use this. And if I'm using this, I'll probably use this. I mean, you could argue maybe using this, but I'm like, look, if I'm going to use this, I'm going to apply that as well if I can to help out my team. But even then, most likely, if I'm going to be using Wormhole anyway, like I said before, why wouldn't I use this? Because easily I can just, like, teleport my teammates around, you know? Let's go to the ultimate. So, what did I decide to do? Like, Quantum Overdrive. Like, I don't use this often in a sense of popping my ultimate, but I use it often when I'm using a blink dash. And so it's like, alright, well, what do I want to use? So if I was going a range build, right, I would go this Quantum Storm. It's pretty good single target damage. It's got an AOE afterwards, after a certain amount of time. But it's like, you know, I'm not really going for a range build, and the amount of time that you'll be able to use your Quantum Energy Storm, right? Amount of time you'll have for that in the dashes from the build, it's not long. I think it's like really roughly 3 to 4 seconds, and it's like, well, 3 to 4 seconds is as long as you think when you're trying to apply the explosion detonation, right? So it's like, well, maybe I need to find something else. Well, if I wanted to use it effectively, Quantum Scythe works really good because it's like I can just shoot out beams of energy, which will do like, it's like a second amount of damage applied with your original blade attack, which also pierces through enemies. And I was like, alright, well, this can be used effectively, and I'll be using it all the time regardless. If I do a dash, I'll have enough time from my dash to go into a blink attack, or just a regular melee anyway. So I was like, alright, I'll do that. And if I want to pop my ultimate, right, I'll have the ability to just start swinging away, and I'll have infinite energy anyway. So it's like I'm constantly using my intrinsic. So maybe you could call this an ultimate build, right? This perk right here is useless, and let me tell you why. First off, you're not getting any of the intrinsic attack bonuses from the mastery tree. But second off, it's like, alright, I'm going to either overshoot the enemy, or I'm just going to be using it to just teleport around. I'm not going to go teleport through some drones, right, to take out multiple drones. I'd rather use an explosive arrow. If I'm going to do that, most likely I'm going to be using a razor arrow if it's a faraway target. If it's just for the drones, why would I have an ability specifically for just drone attacks? So there's no real point. It's not that big, and even if it is that big, it's not doing a lot of damage. So it's like, well, whatever, I'm not going to use that. So that's why I chose this. Think about it, it's more efficient than this. And the main reason you would actually use this is whenever you pop your ultimate, right? But this is effective at all times, and it's also effective while using your blink attacks. So yeah. When it comes to the rest of this, you're gonna have it anyway, so I don't really need to talk about that. When it comes to this, hitting an enemy gives you immediate willpower, and willpower over time. I kind of thought it would be a good idea, but I was like, it's not that serious. I do think like maybe I might try it out again later on, but I'm trying to find a way to get cosmic energy, and I have an ISO for that now, which is the main reason why I'm like, do I really want it that badly? I'm gonna try to get the Norn stones and see how that goes, but if it doesn't go too well, it is what it is. So I chose this really just because I'm using quantum energy all the time with my blink attacks. I was like, if I want to be really effective with my intrinsic bar, I gotta use my quantum energy, which means I have to use this. Like I said before, this could work. It works with a vampire leech build. The thing is, not quantum, but cosmic energy can give you the same effect, and if anything, just getting a takedown or finding a health box, health barrel is going to be just as effective. You're going to have these anyway, you know. So I don't really need to talk to you about that. All right, so melee. So juggling in the air. I don't do a lot of meleeing in the air unless I'm using my blink attacks in general anyway. Just no real point, I guess. When it comes to critical attacks and sprint and dodge, I actually do this. And the main reason I do this is her sprinting heavy is actually pretty fast, and it'll allow you to travel across the ground pretty good. As well as her dash attack, dash heavy, it does the same animation as her sprint heavy. And so it's like, I can carry myself further along while also going for a single target. And that's really the main reason I like both of those. That and shot taker, well, evasive shot. I don't use it as often because I'm not using a range build. And so when I do use it, I'm like, evasive shot's good for DPS, but it's like, if I'm really that worried about DPS, I'm not going to be using shot taker, and I'm not going to be using flying solo. So yeah. When it comes to melee, this melee upgrade, extra stun works for takedowns, yeah. Combo finishers. So when you're doing like your multi-attack, what's it called? Blink dash. It has a finisher in the end anyway. when I'm doing like a aerial attack, sometimes I do go for an aerial attack. I was like, well, I might finish off with the main combo. Maybe I want to just focus on my ultimate for a little bit, so I'll just go for the full heavy combo, you know, and I'll do the finisher for there. So I was like, I can still kind of use it. It's not like I can't. And this, like I said before, if I'm really that focused on using my evasive shot, which, like, you know, I'm gonna use that, right? I'm probably gonna run this. I did use this before, and before I got my main build, and I did find it effective. So really, anything here, I'm gonna say this now. You can use anything here, but if we're talking about what I did, I didn't think this was so important once I started going for the build I had. But let's say you just decide you want to do this. Remember, you gotta break blocks, right? So it's like you may not want to vault over somebody, and you don't want to. Maybe you just don't want to have to parry something. Maybe you're weak at the time. Well, a demolition charge is still effective. I still do use it, not as often as I use my other things, but when I need to, hey, you know, demolition charges are pretty effective. On to here. Half superhero for the takedown heroic orb. Heroic orbs are really just your main bread and butter. To be completely honest, the intrinsic orb, there's something like somewhere down here, right, where that'll help you with your intrinsic orbs. So I was like, look, intrinsic orbs are not that serious. I have a way to get my energy back often anyway. If I'm really that worried about intrinsic orbs, I'll probably pop my ultimate. But like I said before, you're not really going to be using it for that. It comes back pretty fast. Just let it, you know, fill back up. And then it's like you're not using your intrinsic energy, right, in order to get, you know, your ranged attacks. You're not doing that. You're going to be using your blink dash or just popping your ult so that you can fire away. But melee, what I usually use, you're not really going to be using it for your dash. I use half superhero just because I want to get my ability, my ultimate back faster if I need to. But to be completely honest, if we're going to be completely real, because I don't normally use my ultimate or any of my other abilities, maybe besides my decoy, often, you could really choose anything. So like I said, the melee tree can be used by anybody, use anything, but the main thing I actually use is just heroic orbs. As when I need a heroic orb, it's always helpful. Alright, let's get down to range. So, one of the things that CD's gonna have to do a better job on is just making better perks that don't have to follow a line like this. But regardless of that, the true shot, the sure shot, and the archer's prowess, it's just the most effective thing. I mean, I'm using scatter shot anyway, so I'm like, why don't I just do that? This is not a guaranteed plasma damage, just keep that in mind. But it's like the idea of, oh, let me choose razor arrow heavy draw, right? It's so I can have more damage with my razor arrows, and then deciding to go here just to have sure shot. There's no real point at all, really. Using the scatter shot, making it more single target. Like, I can't see myself choosing this over that when I'm using scatter shot as my main energy status ability. But I will use razor arrows over explosive arrows if I'm just trying to just attack ranged enemies like drones and stuff that's super far away. I have found myself using explosive arrows for like whenever you're doing missions where you take out terminals and like bots just happen to decide to stand on the terminal. So it's like when I want to clear them off of a terminal, right, I'll just shoot an explosive arrow. But 9 times out of 10, I'm using my razor arrow anyway, so it's like, it is what it is. But like I said, if you're going to use any other arrow, fine, whatever. But because I find scatter shot to be the best, I'm just going to use everything that is scatter shot. And going a little further on what I felt about razor arrows. Razor arrows don't feel that great to me just because of the pullback time. Explosive arrows are the same reason. The pullback time is just terrible. Even with Recurve Prodigy, it doesn't feel that great. Like you'd feel it in like maybe Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, Tomb Raider. It just doesn't feel good at all. And so it's like this doesn't feel good and this doesn't feel good. I do find the quick attack of the single target razor arrow to feel good, but for the most part, it's like I'm just using the quicker version. I'm not using the draw, the heavy draw. Like I want to I want the heavy draw itself to feel good, you know, feel purposeful, and it doesn't. But yeah, like I said, scatter shot all the way. When it comes to intrinsic ability, so you kind of got your choice of having a lot of excess energy. I didn't really think that was necessary, as I have it up often anyway. This would just really just give you more chances in order to apply said dashes. But it's like, if I have it up often anyway, it's like I need to make sure it's up often as effectively as anyway. So I'm just like, why don't I, you know, focus on my, you know, efficiency. Not efficient. Well, where was I at? Where's that? Here you go. There we go. There we go. Efficiency. And so it's like, well, I'm focusing into my blink attacks, and so I'm like, all right. Well, quantum precision gives me critical attack chance on my intrinsic attacks, and quantum might allows me to do more damage. Yeah, I did think about having the rate of energy to come back faster, but I was like I said before, if I'm going to be popping my dash to get my energy back, like it just instantly goes up, I'm going to just, you know, do a dash. And so I'll have it. And so I don't really need the intrinsic energy because it's instant. It's not no slow climb. It's instant. The intrinsic energy cost, yeah, it sounds great, but if I'm dashing, right, and sometimes you can dash a lot and it just will not drain, right? If I'm dashing, I really won't have an issue with energy anyway because it's recharging all the time anyway. And so it's like, that is not necessary. Which is why I chose, well, let me just focus on damage and let me just give myself a way to reduce the energy cost when I'm doing something, right? And so if I'm going to be spamming my melee attacks all the time anyway, why don't I use my intrinsic, why don't I reduce the energy cost for my intrinsic? When it comes to overcharge, really just focused in melee here. Overcharge, like I said before, decoy. If you're popping your ultimate, you're going to be overcharged. If you're popping your dash, you're going to be overcharged. So, and I'm using melee anyway, so might as well focus there. I don't use range because I'm not doing a range build, and I'm not, you know, I'm not trying to take damage, you know, because I don't want to lose my overcharge. It's kind of like Black Widow, where she loses her overcharge. Her overcharge is not her actual intrinsic bar for getting hit. Like again, like I talked about earlier, finishers, that's really the reason I chose this here. This is not that good, and is useless if I don't have intrinsic orbs on, and range critical, like I said before, I'm focused into my melee. Sure, I guess you can argue that if I'm using the scatter shot or razor arrows, right, I would still get it, but I'm like, let me be as effective as possible, because mid-combat, most likely I will use my regular melee when I don't want to just start dashing around all the time, or I've already got a status and something. So it's like, why don't I just use that? And then overcharge at Elementalist. Overcharge increases enemies' status meters 10% faster. I'm trying to be effective with my statuses without having to use Tacticon. No real reason, it's just that I used Tacticon on Black Widow, and I was like, I don't really want to use that for Kate Bishop, as it doesn't seem that effective. Yeah, it could be effective. I've got it to level 3, but it's kind of like, with Black Widow I had multiple ways to apply a status, but with Kate Bishop it's not that often that I can do it unless I'm using my intrinsic attacks or my bow. And it's like, my bow has to be scatter shot, and I have to hit most of my arrows on him to get that. So it's kind of like, well, how am I going to apply it as effectively as possible? And so I was like, well, this will help out pretty well, without having to use Tacticon. Anyway, that's it for the skills. Hey guys, if you want to see more builds from me, if you like this build especially, leave a comment and hit the like button, and I'll see if I can make some more. I have one for Black Widow and Hulk, but I think everyone's got the same one for Hulk. And Black Widow, I think some people have done something on her, but mine is really just one or two ways I really found you could go with her. But yeah, I'll certainly redo that one. I think I did it a while ago. I just showed the skills, but I'll go and do a more in-depth build as I worked on it a lot more after that day. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.